I believe sometimes as women, as girls, we forget our self-worth. Whether it's boundaries put up around us that prevents us to remember that we are strong, powerful women, or boundaries we put on ourselves that makes us think that we are not strong, that we aren't really worthy. My goal is to change that. My goal is to have you know that you are worthy, that you are capable of making a difference and a change, that you are capable of succeeding and pushing yourself. My podcast, Girls Who Run the World, shares stories of strong, powerful women that are changing the world, that impact their community through their everyday lives. I am so excited to share this podcast with you all, hoping that it makes you realize that you are strong, you are worthy, and you are powerful. Let's do this.
Welcome back to Girls Who Run the World podcast. Today, I have the honor of interviewing the one and only Meaghan Murphy. Meaghan is known for her amazing, continuous, and contagious energy, upbeat personality, and her yay lifestyle. Meaghan literally does it all, or almost. She is editor-in-chief at Women's Day magazine, co-host of Off the Gram podcast, on-air TV personality, a certified trainer, marathon runner, and a mother of 2 boys and a girl. I am so excited to be here in New York City today interviewing Meaghan and truly cannot wait for this conversation. Hi, Meaghan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Meaghan B. Murphy. I am a longtime magazine editor. I have been editing magazines since I was 18 years old. I have had jobs at places like Cosmopolitan, Self Magazine. I was one of the founding editors of Teen People magazine. I did 6 or 7 years at Good Housekeeping, and I've been the editor-in-chief of Women's Day for 4 years now. That went fast. I'm also an author. I wrote the book, Your Fully Charged Life. It's a radically simple approach to having endless energy and filling every day with yay. It is in hardcover and paperback. It's been translated into 4 languages. And I'm also the Audible for my book, which makes me proud. I'm a TV personality. My degree is in acting. I used to be a correspondent on MTV in the 90s, and I'm a frequent flyer on shows like Today and Live with Kelly and Mark.
I love it all. That's a lot. I'm like, in my intro, I was like, this is a woman that does it all. And it's really inspirational because, like, I don't know how you find time to do it all.
Well, I don't do it all.
Yeah.
I do it almost,
Yeah.
which I think is very, very important. Like,
Yeah.
no one can or should do it all.
Yeah.
And becoming a really good, as I like to say, a relentless no-sayer makes more things possible, right? Because you don't want to spend energy saying yes and doing things that don't bring you meaning, that aren't aligned with your principles. That you gotta, your time is your most precious commodity. It's the only non-renewable resource. So you got to spend those minutes wisely.
That's really good advice because especially as like a college student, you know, you're like, for me going into Alabama for the first couple of years, I was like, okay, I have to say yes to everything, like no matter what, just so I know I find friends. And obviously, yes, like put yourself out there. But then this year going into my junior year, I'm like, it kind of feels good to say no to the things that you don't want to do and the people you don't want to be around and stuff like that.
Yes, like say yes to new experiences that challenge you or scare you. Like you're not going to say no because something is scary. If something's scary, it's probably the right thing. But you start to trust your gut. I mean, you're going to be a junior. Like you know what you need. You know what fuels your purpose and your passion. So like you don't want to waste any more energy with things that don't align.
Right. That's really good advice. Okay, so let's go back from the beginning.
Sure.
Nickname. I've like, when I was listening to probably almost every podcast, I probably couldn't even listen to all of them, interview, read things, you had the nickname Grumpy. Yeah. So I just want to like talk about it. How'd you get it? Where'd that start?
Sure.
And like at that time in your life?
So as a kid, I had a very overwhelming negativity bias. Like I was neggy meggy, I was grumpy. My parents gave me a Grumpy the Dwarf gold necklace that I wore with pride because I was really, really a grumpy little kid. And it was really, now I can look back and say I just had really big swirling emotions that I didn't really know how to handle. And until I kind of learned to do that, I just was a really tough little kid. And that led to some tumultuous, tough teen years. I struggled with an eating disorder. I lost my best friend. I had some tough times. And you know, the negativity carried me through that.
Yeah. And what, at that time, what age was this that it was the Grumpy?
So I would say, I mean, I was from a little kid.
Right.
I mean,
like,
and it's funny, like some people are just inherently more negative and grumpy.
Right. Yeah.
I'm inherently more negative and grumpy. I like to say I've trained to live with optimism and joy and to prioritize positivity, but that's not who I am naturally.
Right.
And I see it in my own kids. My youngest son is a grump, and I have
like,
to work on him to be like,
Right.
okay, you know what? You can complain about that, but you need to tell me 2 good things first.
Right.
And so like that's just the way some people are programmed, is to see the glass half empty versus refillable or half full, you know?
And so I guess then at that point, like, how did you, I guess, train your perspective to change, or where was that shift in your life where you're like, okay, I mean, you're now one of the biggest influencers. That's, I don't even know if that's a good word to explain all that you have accomplished and do, but someone that is known for this contagious energy. I mean, like, on social media, like, I smile at all the stories, and I can just imagine all the thousands of other people watching it. How have you changed from grumpy to that?
Sure. So, I mean, during my teenage years, I spent inpatient. I was in the hospital for an entire year, months at a time, outpatient treatment, tons of therapy, like tons and tons of self-work. And that got me to a place where I like to say I was like a functioning human.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I could eat a meal and go to school.
Right.
But I was still unhappy.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, happiness was this very elusive thing. Like, at the time, that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy, was super popular.
Yeah.
We even did, like, a scarf juggling performance to it in gym class. Like,
you're like, nah.
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I am worried because I don't know how to be happy.
Right.
And ironically, I was, at that point, an editor at Cosmopolitan magazine. Because I went to college, I graduated college, I had some success, and I was doing okay. I just wasn't happy.
Right.
And I was assigned this story to write called The 7 Secrets of Happiness. And in doing the research for that, I discovered positive psychology and the work of Dr. Martin Seligman. And at that time, as an editor, like, there was no Google. Like, that wasn't a thing. You actually had to, like, call psychology departments, talk to researchers. Like, you had to do work. And in doing that work, I found it incredibly eye-opening to discover the PERMA theory of wellness, which is this formula for happiness. And it was this moment for me where it was like, wow, happiness isn't so elusive. It's actually a state of doing and not this passive state of being. Like, don't worry, be happy. Well, worry, but do happy.
Yeah.
And learn what makes you happy, what inches your happiness needle, and do more of that. Mm-hmm. And that's just sort of, I started to adopt some of those behaviors. You know, the P is for positive emotions, the E is for engagement, the R is for relationships, the M is for meaning, the A is for accomplishment. I like leaned into all of those buckets and filled them. And I learned in doing that, like, wow, I'm living a little differently.
Right. And you started to notice the change and stuff like that.
And then it just became programmed, right? Like,
you.
years and years and years later, you know, I absolutely live with like a bubbly mix of optimism and joy.
Right.
But I'm not a Pollyanna. Like, this is not toxic positivity. I am a realistic optimist.
Yeah.
I absolutely see the crap. I see the hard. But I have the tools, you know, and the resilient strategies to move through even really tough things with grit and grace. Yeah. And I speak about that quite a bit. I love the science of resilience. I love positive psychology. I love the science of making these changes.
That's interesting. And I think, you know, as someone, like, again, that has overcome so much adversity, how do you, now that you had this toolkit and you kind of know what to utilize when, like, what advice do you give when someone, like, even in my own life, like, friendships, middle school was like the hardest years so far in my life because, like, social media was just becoming a thing. But how do you stay away? I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but how do you stay away from the negativity, the negative people, stuff like that?
Well, so a couple of things. I feel like, you know, there's, like, if your sister sucks, like, you can't cut her out of your life. Yeah. But you can limit energy vampires. And I think an important thing is understanding how people make you feel. Right? Because the only thing you can do is control your reaction. Like, does this person make you feel jealous? Does this person make you feel angry? Do you find yourself shit-talking more when you're around this certain group of people? Yeah. Do you suddenly feel less than or insecure? just being aware. Like step one is just being aware of how other people make you feel about you.
Yeah. And that's important because especially like even young girls listening to this, women that are just now catching on to that idea to whatever point in your life that you kind of click with this. Like for me, the past couple years of college, I kind of used in my head the way of like, if this person were to walk into my dorm, like in dorm room, like what's that feeling that I get when that person comes into the dorm room?
Yeah.
And that the first couple, like, the first couple months, it's like hard because you want to be friends with everybody. You want to have a group. You don't want to be the person that's hundreds of miles away from home and be like, oh my goodness, I don't have my group.
And the other thing I always say to them, you need one solid connection. You know, like if you have one person that you can tell your secrets to, that you feel like you trust and you really connect with, the rest are your weak ties.
Yeah.
And I think weak ties is sort of a misnomer because the weak ties have a strong importance.
Right.
But it's like we need each other. But like you can get that from like weak interactions, right? I always like to say you don't have to braid each other's hair or barbecue, right? Like you can have friends that you smile at, you say hi to, you're in the same class, you see them at the gym, and they're your friend in air quotes, right? Because like you're not going to barbecue but you need those interactions,
right?
And there's no reason to hide from those people or have animosity. It's just they're just not going to be your best friend,
right.
And you don't need 5 best friends, and you don't need a group of 10. You need a person that you trust and that you can be your authentic self with.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you find that especially with social media and having influencers or role models like yourself and other people out there that kind of voice that and like show it throughout their life with like you said, time's important and those that you give your time to. And like even in the past year in my life, like just like being influenced by people like you, understanding that like if I have my one friend, like you said, like my one best friend that's there for me, or my 3 best friends, like,
or your twin sister.
Yeah, my twin sister.
You're lucky.
I mean,
You're lucky.
I'm just starting to notice that in the past couple of years. We're like, wait, we are best friends? Like we're dorm mates, everything. But yeah, just finding your people really, and like understanding that it doesn't have to be 1,000 of them. Just have your handful of people that.
I think the biggest thing is like that. That cliche of like, choose people that feel like sunshine.
Yeah.
Like, the difference. And we don't always trust those instincts. Yeah. But like, trust your gut. Right. Like your friend, it's like, it is kind of like dating, right? You have to have that chemistry. You have to have that connection. You have to have that trust. They have to make you laugh. They have to make you smile. You have to want to spend time with them, right? And if not, why? You cannot get your time back. Yeah. That is the one thing. Once you spend minutes, there's no refund.
Yeah. That's why you gotta say no sometimes. I love it. And I'm really starting to find this out in just the past couple of years. And I'm sure in like 10 years, I'm like, wait, I should have known this a little bit sooner. But I think it's all coming together, especially with things like this that we're doing today, like helping people realize things. And, I'll probably listen to the same clip over and over again just to remind myself. But again, it's truly amazing. Well, while we're sitting in your office here at Women's Day, the closet, I love it.
The interrogation room.
Yes. So you are like, you've climbed up through all the branches of the magazine world. I feel like you started at 18, 17?
Yeah. I won an essay contest my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
I wrote an essay about overcoming adversity. And then I was named a Horatio Alger National Scholar, and I was on an NBC special, and I won $10,000 scholarship. And I got a lot of national press around that, and that wound up landing me YM Magazine, which was a very popular teen magazine at the time. It was like, oh, we want to write your story. And I was like, no, I'll write my story. Yeah. And I'd love to be an intern. Can I start Monday? Great. Okay, see you Monday. And that's just sort of how it all happened. From winning that contest.
Yeah. Did you know about like, this is what you want to do before then, or was it just kind of like, no, this sounds good?
This is going to sound funny, but I'm not super goal oriented.
Okay.
I chase excitement. I chase passion and purpose. I do what lights me up.
Yeah.
I've never been like, oh, I want to be an editor-in-chief someday. It was more like I'm more in the moment and in the moment of excitement and passion and purpose. Like, I think a purpose-driven life is the most important thing. Like what you do has to matter.
Right, to you. And
It has
that's
to
what's
matter to
important
you.
to me. Like the main question I get when I come home, and I love it because I love that people are caring and want to know, but it's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'm communications, and the reaction's like, what? And it's like, well, I don't really know if I want to do, like, what even is communications if we think about it? Like, it's so many things that I've learned, but just, what's your advice for people that don't know what they want to do? Like when you were at that time before you started a magazine?
Yeah. I think something is like, what do your friends tell you you're good at or ask your advice about, right? That gives you some hints into your talents, right? Like people were constantly always like, you have such positive energy. Like you're like a ball of positive energy. For me, that was like my indication of like, you know what? This book needs to get written.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, I want to be an author. It was like, that's what people were coming to me for.
Right.
So I think that's one way of sort of kind of honing in on a passion point is like, wow, people want this from me.
Right.
And I care about this. I can deliver on this. So I'm going to write this book, or I'm going to write this article, or I'm going to make this video, or I'm going to do this podcast.
Right.
Like kind of gauge what people really resonate and
what
want
they
from
see in
you,
you.
what they see in you, because sometimes we can't see it in ourselves, right? We get in our own way. But what does your best friend see in you?
It's like something I learned in class recently. It was an interpersonal communications class I was taking, and they were talking about how you need people to now I'm gonna blank on the word, but kind of tell you what your good qualities are. It's like the recognition that other people give you, it gives you sense of who you are as a person.
Exactly.
Because not 100% of the time I don't know how I come off to people, you know, and then your friends, like, they come to me for advice or running or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, now I kind of know that this is what I come off to and this is the person I am, kind of. And
if that feels good, then you're on the right track.
Right. It
Sometimes
does feel good. I love when the friends reach out.
We get in our own way so much, right? Because there's so many expectations put upon us from well-meaning family, from society, from school, all the things. And like this is your life. This is the job that you're going to have to do. So like, who actually cares?
I'm like you. I don't want to be in the office.
Right? Like,
I mean, you're doing 1,000 other things outside, but I mean, it's kind of good not to know what you don't want to do, like you said.
Well,
like
I think
what
that's
you want
part
to say
of
no
it,
to.
right?
Yeah.
You also have to know what you don't want to do, right? And that's sort of like, you know, for me, I know that my core values are family, fun, and freedom. So those are my driving forces. I want things that are positively impact my family, that are fun, and don't cramp my style.
Yeah.
That allow me to have freedom, whether that's creative freedom, like, you know, schedule freedom so that I can be there more for my kids. Like, you just have to know what motivates you. For me, it is right now in this moment, and it can change, but right now it's fun, family, and freedom.
Yeah. And then, so we were at YM, and then you got into the magazine world, Cosmopolitan, right? After that?
So I was at YM, but I was also an actress. So I was simultaneously started hosting MTV. Mm-hmm. So I was on the Carson Daly Show and then TRL, and I also wrote. So I wrote MTV news segments and did a lot of like on camera stuff for MTV. And then I was tapped by Time Inc. to start a teen magazine. Yeah. So my team and we developed Teen People. And I worked on that for a little bit while still working at MTV. And I did commercials and all of that kind of stuff. And then I came back to magazines at Cosmopolitan, did that for, I think, 4 years, and then went over to Condé Nast and was in. But so this is what I would talk about with in terms of passion and purpose. Like, if I look at my career trajectory, I worked on teen books when I cared about teen things, right? I was a young college kid. I was 19, barely 20, turning 21. Like, I was very much in that world. Right. So that's what I wanted to write about. That's who I wanted to connect with. I was an evangelist for that era in my life. Then I went to Cosmopolitan. I was single. I was dating. Yeah. Like, I wanted to talk about love and relationships and sex because that's where I was in that moment in my life. Yeah. When they called me to take the job at Self, I mean, those were my self-formative years. Right. But during my tenure at Self magazine, where I was developing the Self Challenge and was the deputy editor, fitness director, all the things at that magazine. I got engaged, got married, had 3 kids. Those were my self-formative years. I was writing about all the things that I cared deeply about. I was running my first marathons and all of that. And then when they called me for Good Housekeeping, it wasn't lost on me that I had just bought my first home in the suburbs and was about to raise 3 kids in the suburbs, right? That was the error.
Yeah.
And when they called me to take over Women's Day, it was also pretty poetic because it was March 2020, start of the pandemic.
Crazy.
And what I really thought that people needed was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Moments of joy and yay in every day.
Right.
And I kind of reimagined the magazine as destination celebration.
Mm-hmm.
No holiday left behind from Taco Tuesday to Christmas because people need reasons to celebrate because the world is scary and hard and dark right now. And I am going to be a ray of sunshine.
I know. I love that you said the Taco Tuesday. I did know about that because, even in my own family, Mackenzie, my sister, and I, my whole family, were very much out doing things, friends, barbecue with the best friends, over our friend's house. And then it kind of got shut down. And that's where I found my love for running with my dad, who was running at the time, or still was running, but who was good at running at the time. And now he's too fast for me, but it's okay.
I love it.
And you really kind of found out that the little things were what you needed just every day. Mm-hmm. And so how did you know that this is where you were meant to be at the time?
Because it's what I needed.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. I think for me, it's always if I need this, somebody else needs this too.
Right.
And that's sort of, I've always looked at my job as a magazine editor, as an author, as an influencer, is if something is hard for me or I struggle with something and I find a solution, well, I'm going to make sure I share that wildly because I'm certain somebody else is struggling too. And that's my purpose is if I can give someone a great dinner recipe or a health tip that saves or changes their life, or even just a fun decoration that brings joy to their home, that's what lights me up.
Right.
I love helping people. I just love it.
Right. You love it.
I just love it.
I know
just
that.
love
You're
it.
the perfect place. So how has it changed? Because I talk about, I was in middle school, and I think social media, I know I was sneaking Instagram, I think in 5th grade, and I was posting just the randomest selfies. I was this young child. How has the magazine world in your eyes shifted over the past 20 years or so?
It changed wildly. I used to make 12 issues a year. Now we make 6 issues a year. A large portion of our audience is on digital. There's a huge focus on the digital portion of our business. And social media, it used to be people anxiously waited for their monthly magazine because that was your monthly hit of content. Now people can have content whenever they want, served up whenever they want. Now, to me, it's sort of this beautiful gift, right? You can connect with people anytime you want. If I have find the best snack food ever, I can share it instantly versus having to wait till next month to tell people about it. Yeah. So it's good and it's bad. I have a really awesome community online and everybody is supportive and positive. And I think you kind of have to see that, right? Positivity begets positivity. Negativity begets negativity. You have to edit your social, edit out the crap because crap begets crap.
And it's so, I know that people get into talk about social media and it's it does bring a lot of probably mental anxiety issues for young children. But for me at the time where I can look back and be okay, middle school was hard at that moment because people will make fun of things and stuff like that. But now where I know, like you said, the people I want to be around, the people I want to follow, it also allows you to find people.
Oh my gosh.
There's no way, obviously I've seen Women's Day all the time, but to know the face behind it more easily on social media, to follow you and come to the podcast and know kind of I feel I know you based off what I see, even though I haven't ever met you or heard, I've heard your story obviously, but talk to you about your story. And it's a beautiful thing that does great things for people that are wanting to find similar people with similar motives.
And that's the thing is it is actually a really beautiful place to connect with people if you curate your social in a way that is positive,
Right.
right? Because when I have a reaction to something on social media that's negative, I'm obviously mature and evolved enough to then say, okay, why is it making me feel that way? What work do I need to do? If I'm feeling jealousy or I'm feeling FOMO, what is that telling me about my life?
Right.
Do I need to plan a trip?
Yeah.
Do I need to find better friends because I'm feeling left out of a barbecue I wasn't invited to? Like,
Right.
what is it telling me about me?
Yeah.
Because nothing is about them, it's about you.
Yeah.
And those reactions can be very, very telling.
Yeah. And that's hard, you know. I have suffered for a while about FOMO, and not so much at this age, obviously it always comes back, but high school, like when you can always see what people are doing, you know if you're left out of something. And you shared the story, if it's okay to bring it up, about your daughter and Girl Scouts and the wrong idea. And it's really, like, my dad's coming out with a book in December, and it's kind of about the stories you tell yourself. And like, I am not a victim, gosh, I'm forgetting another word, but I often, like, growing up, especially in high school, kind of was like making up stories in my head about why wasn't I not there, or why wasn't I invited. So can you just share that a little bit?
So I would say, so anxiety does that, right? Like, anxiety will definitely tell you, like, they're talking about me, they didn't invite me, this and that. I think it's really tough, and social media is really, really tough. But I think it's also sometimes valuable to have tough conversations. I mean, one of the stories I told about my daughter was she was not invited to a birthday party.
Yeah.
And then I was like spiraling of like, why don't they like her? Why didn't they invite her? What does this mom have against my daughter? And instead of just like letting it spiral, I picked up the phone and called the mom and I said, hey, listen, like, why wasn't my daughter invited to that party? Like, she was really hurt. And I just want to get to the bottom of it. And it turns out, like, she just had the wrong email.
Right.
And, like, we didn't get the Evite, and it was, like, a silly misunderstanding. That is often the case, right? Like, and I always say to my kids, not everybody can be invited to everything. Right? I'm not hosting 25 girls for a sleepover.
Yeah.
So, somebody's going to feel left out,
Yeah.
but not everybody can be invited to everything, and that's actually okay.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something, it takes a long time to understand. Obviously, you're teaching your kids now that, but at the time, like, you know, high school, it feels like it's like the end of the world. Like, it's like, and even not so much middle school, I feel like high school, I went to all girls high school, like, loved it, but it's even more, everyone, you know, is always social media posting. And I think it is important to just know that it's okay if I'm not there at that moment. Maybe that's not where I'm supposed to be right now with them.
And I will say, so gratitude.
Yeah.
And grounding yourself in gratitude is one way to combat some of the hard feelings that come up with FOMO. Because, listen, when you appreciate and you can pause and appreciate what you have and where you're at, some of that doesn't sting as much.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it goes away. And and like, gratitude can be really tough to practice. But, you know, like, if I see on social media that 2 families are having a barbecue and I wasn't invited, like, can I ground myself in gratitude and say, like, I'm actually pretty psyched. Like, I have this time to watch a movie with my boys.
Right. Like,
right. And like, I'm just going to be grateful that I have this time with my boys, and screw them.
Right. I like it. It's easy, but not so much.
It's hard. It's all hard. I mean, it's all hard. It's all work. And sometimes things just sting, you know, and like, that's okay too.
Right. So over the years, as we start to talk about gratitude and finding joy, how have you been able to cultivate is it yay lifestyle? Am I always, because I saw that somewhere and I'm
always
like, is that
somebody, like, people, so I always say I'm finding the yay. I create yay lists. Yay is basically my word for joy.
Yeah.
Joy felt like somehow, I don't know, like, it just doesn't feel like my word. It almost, it's like Christmassy or religious or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm just always about finding the yay, putting the yay in your day. And that is essentially a gratitude practice. It's a fun-filled gratitude practice. Because I know scientifically, like, you know, I'm a service journalist.
Yeah.
So, like, I love the science of gratitude. I understand from a research perspective that stopping to pause and appreciate what's good in the day absolutely attracts more of that good for you.
Yeah.
It, like, fights feelings like FOMO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, keeping a gratitude diary, that's just homework,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
hard.
I don't need anything else to
like,
do.
what did I do today?
Now I need a journal. Now I need to get a pen. Like,
Yeah.
for me, it's my simple practice when I do it with my kids and do it around dinner or do it before bed is like, what was your yay today? What made you say yay today? And, you know, it can be as simple as I got to be on a podcast with a really cool, empowering young woman. Or it could be like, I had the best dinner ever.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like
the small
it can be
things.
really, really small.
Right.
It can be like, I didn't get rained on, you know, running to
My
the
hair didn't get
train,
frizzy.
right? Like my hair wasn't frizzy. Like it is literally just pausing and appreciating like
Yeah.
things aren't so bad.
Yeah. And I recently, like, you know, I went to a smaller all-girls high school and then going to University of Alabama now where I'm at. And it's like, you never see the same person when you're walking to class. And a lot of the time I have different classes than my friends. So I'm always like, I'll walk alone, or one time I'll be with a friend. But in those moments where I'm alone and I'm just walking, it's been multiple of those moments where I'm just like, stop, look around. And it's like, I get a little bit, not the chills, but it's just like, this is great. Like where I'm at, being proud of yourself. And like, obviously, I mean, you can probably speak on this. How is it, it's hard to, you know, when things are really good, it's easy to be like, I'm grateful. How is it, what's your advice? What's your tool on when it's really hard, when life is hard, when you're struggling with school or friends or family, like losing somebody, losing pets. Like one of my friends just lost her dog today. And like, how do you stay grateful in the moments that are tough?
Yeah, you have to build resilience. And I think a lot of it is like what I call the 3 A's, like accept, acknowledge, and then take action to move onward and out of wherever you're stuck. I mean, and like acceptance is like, wow, like life is not always okay. It's like sometimes it really, really is hard, and acknowledging like, wow, maybe it's not fair that this is happening to me. Right. This sucks and it's hard. Yeah. So like have that pity party. Like you're allowed to have that pity party, right? Don't make it last too long.
Yeah.
But have your pity party. And once you do that, then you are poised to take action. And the good news is that can be a micro action. Like if you're really stuck in a bad way, like don't think about a month from now or a week from now or a day from now. Like think about what can I do right now? What's one little thing I can do to get unstuck? Because that's really, really the goal. And I talk a lot about resilience role models. So whatever it is you're going through, look to someone who's already been through it as your proof, right? Like receipts, like it's possible.
Yeah.
I do that in my life all the time.
Yeah.
When I lost my dad, I looked to someone else who lost their father to pancreatic cancer, and I was like, okay, they don't cry when they talk about it anymore. Like they're fully functioning. Someday that'll be me. When I went through a preventative double mastectomy, I looked to my friend who had had the surgery a year before me, and I'm like, okay, she's back at the gym. She can raise her arms over her head. She's doing okay. That will be me. And sometimes you just need that proof of somebody who did the hard thing before you.
Right. That's actually, you put it, I feel like perfectly. And I grew up, that's something that reminds me, you say that, with my dad saying that, like, he'll give the story of, like, if you're driving down with your family to, he always says, like, Disney or something. You're going from Maryland to Disney, and halfway you get stuck in this ditch. When you're in the ditch, do you, A, and I'm probably butchering it, A, stay in the ditch and, like, I don't know, it's like stay in the ditch, B, call for help and go home, or C, find a way out of the ditch and finish your trip to Disneyland. Or it's something like that. And it's kind of like accept the fact that you're there, acknowledge that, but also in the moment, like you said, make a decision. Find a way that, like, what's your next step?
Yeah. And that you can be paralyzed when things are hard, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be so hard to move onward when you're stuck.
Yeah.
But it's like have your pity party,
Right.
then figure out one thing you can do to inch onward.
Right. So transitioning into this, you kind of talked about, you said it a little bit, how, I don't know what age it was, but you struggled with an eating disorder and overcame that. Can you talk a little bit about that, what that was like for you, and kind of what led you to the eating disorder, and then what led you out of the eating disorder?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm 48 years old now. So like it feels like another lifetime, but now I'm parenting a 13-year-old and entering the teenage years. So now it's like weirdly prominent again because I'm dealing with teenagers. I guess my eating disorder started and I was like probably 13 or 14. And for me, a big piece of it was, now in retrospect, no idea at the time, but was just sort of quieting big emotions. I just kind of wanted to be numb. And so I sort of, and I had some perfectionistic tendencies. So it was like a combination of like, why are you always so happy? Why are you crying? Why are you mad? Why are you angry? I had big emotions. Thankfully, I learned how to channel that with acting and theater and writing and all the things. But like, as a little kid, I didn't know what to do with these big, giant, swirling emotions. And so I tried to numb it. And I think people do that with alcohol. People do that with drugs. People do that with an eating disorder. Like, right? Like addiction sometimes numbs that tough stuff. And that's what it did for me for a while. And, you know, it landed me in the hospital. I lost my best friend who was also anorexic. And there just were tough years.
Yeah. And kind of how did you, I mean, it's probably if it's too personal, it's okay. But like how because that's something, eating disorders, and I'm going to ask you this, but are something that like now just in college, it's become a topic of a conversation for me.
Sure.
Or like the group, or like it's like girls will be like, oh, I think she has one. Like, you know, you'll hear people be like, oh, she has one. It's like, what is this? This is a new thing. And some of my friends struggled with it, and being around that, being like kind of in the midst where they're ending it, but still like figuring out, oh, how does this affect her? How can I be there for her in this moment? Because it's hard, you know. But I guess my question is like, first, how did you push through that, or how did you learn through that? And second, how do you think it's more, this is a two-part question, I hate doing two-part questions, but how is it something that's maybe more talked about today?
So I will say hospitalizations, therapy, and I learned that I was a really good writer. And I learned to channel a lot of that angst and tough feelings through my writing. And then I was rewarded for it. I mean, I won an essay on overcoming adversity, got $10,000. I was like, oh, I mean, I was instantly validated that this was a really awesome, healthy outlet. So discovering my writing talent for me was an absolute game changer. And I look back on that time, I feel so sorry for people who struggle with food and addiction in general, because like it's a really crappy way to live, right? It sucks to fear every meal, to be scared of food, to not be able to fuel your body properly, to punish yourself with exercise. Like that's a really awful way to live. And I'm so grateful that I went through it in my teen years, because I know women in their 40s who struggle with it. And oftentimes that it's, you know, you want to control your body. You want to control something when things feel out of control. You're hitting puberty and you want to control something. You want to be like, what?
You're like, what is happening?
I'm going to control my food intake. Ultimately learning that exercise is not punishment. Movement is actually medicine. Like understanding the mind and body benefits of moving your body, understanding that food is fuel and you can enjoy it. And it's like everything, like more everyday foods, like I call them sometimes foods versus always foods. More always foods than sometimes foods, but like nothing is off limits. Food isn't bad. You know, some things are better for you from a health perspective than others, but food isn't bad. Like,
and you kind of, and I, as a runner as well, how have you found, runner, walker, and what's the workouts that you do now? What's your favorite one that you do a lot?
So right now, I mean, so first of all, then I got diagnosed. The great irony of being a recovered anorexic is then I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So I had to restrict gluten from my diet, which is like funny. Like it's funny for someone who had a very hard time eating to now not be able to eat things. Like I think it's like a great irony of my life, and like so funny. They're like, actually,
you're all
and now you can't eat gluten. So, But wait, what was the question?
Sorry, I know we finished talk. I didn't even let you finish about the eating disorder, but I was kind of asking about exercise and how.
Oh, sure. So I feel very grateful that movement is medicine. I'm certified trainer for 20 years. I had a kettlebell certification, spin certification. I was the fitness director of Self Magazine for 9 years. I did workout videos with like Jillian Michaels and Tone It Up and all the things. So I love movement.
Yeah.
How I move changes, and it changes month to year to whatever. I used to be a marathoner. I used to run, my PR was 3:29. I mean, I was like a pretty fast runner. Yeah.
Just throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean,
love it. That's amazing.
So I can run.
Yeah.
Like I played soccer. I was an athlete. And it's funny, although I can do any form of movement.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I pride myself on of being an athlete is that I'm not afraid of any kind of movement. I can do anything. Right now, I'm in a place after recovering from a double mastectomy, which was a hard surgery. I get 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
I work on agility, mobility, flexibility. I am so kind to myself. I go to Bar Method 3 to 5 days a week. My legs have never looked better. Like,
I need to get into bar.
I love my, and I think something that also happens that when you go through a physical hardship is understanding how lucky we are to be able to move our bodies. And again, that's me being grounded in gratitude, right? Like, you have a double mastectomy and you can't move for 6 weeks and you can't lift your arm up over your head. Guess what? When you can walk slowly for 2 blocks, it's a joy.
Yeah.
When you can do a push-up after not being able to like use your arms for months is a gift.
Yeah.
So like any way we're able to move our bodies,
right?
Wow, how lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you talk about walking and stuff like that. I've definitely, like, as someone that just like, Kenzie, we were both athletes growing up, swimming, basketball,
I used to laugh at walkers.
Oh, really?
I used to think walking was so silly.
Yeah.
Like, it takes so long. Why? What are you doing?
That's where I'm kind of stuck right now.
I was a very competitive athlete.
Yeah.
And, like, getting to this place where movement is just medicine. And we all take our medicine differently. And we all need different medicine. And like, just knowing that I don't come at anything from a place of competition.
Right.
And I just come at everything from a place of, like, I don't have to work out. I get to. I get to wake up at 6 o'clock this morning and go to Orange Theory. I get to do that because guess what? I'm healthy.
Yeah.
I get to put on my sneakers and walk 10 blocks because I'm healthy.
When it was taken away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's like when, like, I love running. I love the feeling of it, the personalness about it, but yet the community feel at the same time. And I've actually recently gotten to hot yoga, which is like a different
I love hot yoga
ball game because I'm like always been a runner and now I'm like here doing like becoming flexible and strong. But I think it's important just to find like those little moments and how do you stay away again like from people that like I ran Chicago when I was a senior in high school, like just as like it was a COVID hobby really. I just started running long distance. I had tons of time on my hands and to be able to run with my father and stuff like that. And how do you stay away from people that are like, wait, you're kind of doing stuff that normal people don't do, like normal.
Well, so if someone's judging what you're doing, it's because they have an insecurity, right? Why would someone judge the fact that you're running a marathon? Is it because you can't run a marathon? Like, why do you care?
Yeah, I remember going into this week after school and my best friends obviously were like, oh my goodness, like you need to bring the medal. Like it was the greatest thing with my like 5 best friends at school. And then the other people, I thought they were like, well, that's kind of weird. Like why? And then I was kind of embarrassed for a week. I remember being like,
those are not your people. The people who made you feel embarrassed are not your people.
I'm like, I ran at 17 or I just had turned 17 like 2 weeks before.
That's amazing.
And I remember like, so I think it's easy, for someone to tell you, and it's hard at the time.
But this is that negativity bias in action, right? Your 5 friends are cheering you on, high-fiving you, telling you where to middle school, and what are you hearing? The one asshole who tried to yuck your yum, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, what?
That sucks.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that negativity can be so loud that we let it drown out all the positive.
All the other people.
And that really sucks.
Yeah. It's like you can't stop thinking about the people that are like, well, what was your time? You know?
Yeah.
What was the time? And I'm like, do you even want to know? Like, that where it's become embarrassing, where it's like, well, I was 16 years old, never ran before. Didn't know what running was.
Yeah, but also, like, again, think about it this way. That person's asking your time. They might just be curious.
Yeah.
If you're reacting that way, that's about you.
Right.
That means you're not comfortable with your time, or you're insecure about your
Right.
time, or you didn't PR, or you want to do better.
Yeah.
So take their
shift it.
question and be like, oh, do I need to do some work here? Because why is that making me feel anything? Like, they might just want to know how you did, because that's a point of curiosity for someone who wants to talk about running.
Exactly.
So I think it's like instead
thing.
of thinking about what someone said to you and what their motivation was, because how could you possibly know their motivation?
Yeah.
Understand what it's telling you
How it's
about
affecting
yourself.
you. Yeah.
Because that's what you can do. You can change a reaction.
Yeah. How you react to it. That's really good advice, really, because I think it's hard to be like,
it's exhausting and it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
You will never actually know what anyone else is thinking. Maybe your twin sister, because you guys probably have some psychic powers. But like, you have no idea, and you're putting that on someone, right? That's you've filtered that. I mean, unless they're a complete like jerk and we're like, hey loser, how fast did you run? Like that might be a good indication. But if someone's just like, how fast did you run? It's just a question. Right. You've assigned it a different kind of meaning. So you got to do the work. Yeah, you got to do the work.
That's really, I'm going to think about that for a while now. But like again, and finally, the last thing I was going to bring up was how you wrote your book. When did you read? It was recent, like a couple.
So the hardcover came out in March 2020. Right as the pandemic was happening. March 2020, I finished it in April 2020, pandemic, while I was like doing this magazine from home. And then it came out February 2021 in hardcover, February 2022 in paperback, and now it just came out in Arabic, Spanish, Vietnamese, and the Audible is out on Audible.
And you did your own Audible.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was tough because I had COVID.
Oh.
And the only way to make the deadline was to record with COVID.
No.
In like a room like this, in a recording
How do you do
studio.
that? Do you pause?
If I listen, I can't stand. Like if you listen to my Audible, you can kind of hear. I have a scratchy voice.
Yeah.
Anyway, but this was hard. I was sick.
I don't know how I would do it. A whole book?
Yeah. It takes 3 days. But my book is 10 hours. I think it's 10-hour recording. It took 3 days.
That's wild. That's a long time.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice that you do it yourself. I feel like I like the Audible books because, you can listen in the car and stuff like that. And it's nice to hear from the author's perspective because they know the most about the feelings at that point. I'm sure people can do a great job of adapting.
I cry. I choke up. Like, it was very real. It was, like, very intense for me.
Right. It was like you have the best connection to it. So I love hearing, like, the actual person tell their story. Yeah. That's probably, like, the love for the podcast.
I've never actually listened to it. I've only recorded it because I don't really, like,
I know. I
feel
like
I listen to myself for so long, but, like...
I know. It's like when I listen back to the podcast, it's like, oh, wait. And then a lot of the time, I feel like I hear... it's like my twin sister talking, so I feel like I hear her. It's like the weirdest thing.
That's funny.
It's like a weird thing.
Are you identical?
Yeah, we're identical. Well, obviously I don't see it. Like there will be baby photos where I'm like, yeah, we look alike, like who is who, sort of thing. And randomly photos now it's like, oh, I look like Kenzie, or she's like, I look like Madison. But if I look in the mirror, like I don't see myself, But then our best friends.
Like, so is this like your discerning mark?
Yeah, or I have a scar right here. I used to be like obviously more noticeable when I was younger. My sister has like a mole right here, so I tell people that. But it's like weird because you'll know the people that go by that and they're like looking in your face.
So I don't know how fresh your scar, but I put bio oil and make it.
I need to.
Bio oil is amazing.
Because this was from a while ago, like a child. But you'll know people are like looking in your eyes. They're like, wait. It's like, okay, I know the trick that you're trying to use.
You look a little like Katie Austin. Do you know Katie Austin? She's Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. She's been on, like, you should look up Katie Austin. You have Katie Austin vibes.
You have a triplet out there.
Right? Yeah.
But I know we have a lot of time, and I'm a talker, so I feel like I need to stay on it. But yeah, we are identical, and it's really weird because, growing up in Maryland, like north of Baltimore, that community learned it, mid-high school. So everyone knew the difference between Madison and Mackenzie. And then we go to Alabama together, and it's like we're relearning how to tell people the difference. And like I think we went assuming that like, oh, people know the difference, but we forget to be like, oh, I'm Madison. And then people like, well, mid-combo, you just see the look on their face. And they're like they don't know which one they're talking to because we have different majors. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
That's awesome.
But the last 2 questions that I always do with all my guests, and this first one, you're going to have to, obviously, you're biased, but do you like to read? And if so, like, what's your favorite book to read? Besides probably your written one.
I like to read. I find that I only get to read on beach vacations because my day-to-day life is like way too busy. I'm very lucky that so many of my friends and colleagues are authors.
Yeah.
The last book I read was Wedding Issues. It was one of Zibby Owen's books from Zibby Books. And now I can't think. Belle Evans, I forget the name of the author. But I also get lots and lots of galleys and early copies.
Right.
I'm very much in the author community. So, I
get to read all your friends'
stuff. I get to read things early.
That's nice, though.
That's fun.
You're like, guys, this is the one coming out.
Yeah.
Let us know. Okay, last question. And you're a mom, but you're a mom of 3 boys, though. We haven't talked
girl,
about that.
boy. No,
okay,
so
you do have a girl.
So my daughter is Charlie.
Okay.
So sometimes people think I have 3 boys, but so I have Charlie, James, and Brooks. I have 3 kids, 13, 12, and 10.
Okay. So you your girl mom, boy mom, what advice would you give to the girl struggling, maybe at her age really, to know her self-worth and have self-confidence? Yeah,
it's a really difficult thing to parent and a difficult thing to like grow into yourself. I chaperoned the 8th grade dance last week. And I gave the girls a pep talk before they walked into the dance. And I was basically like, don't let anyone ruin your fun. Yeah. Like, own this night. These people don't actually matter. You're going to graduate 8th grade. Many of them you will never see again, but you never get this night back. And if I don't see you on the dance floor having a good time, I'm going to be pissed.
I'm going to find you.
Don't allow other people to dampen your joy, to turn your yays to nays. Like, you get one chance.
Right.
You really do just get one chance. Like, tomorrow is absolutely not promised. Mm-hmm. So, hell no, are you going to let what you think someone else thinks about you ruin a really good time?
Yeah. And that's just finishing up, like, that is, like, again, another tough thing to learn. But when you lead by example, like people like you, and when you can really have a lot of trust in these women that you look up to, that like, okay, they say that it gets better, they say that they've learned this from that, and understanding that, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's your role. You need those role models, frankly. Now, my daughter thinks I'm absolutely cringy, and I'll be like, why do you wear that, or why do you do this? And like, what I say to her is like, I have outgrown vanity. I like myself. I relentlessly like myself, and nothing anyone can say about my outfit or my voice or my this or my that impacts me. But I'm almost 50 freaking years old. Like, it shouldn't have to take that long. And I'm hoping that I'm leading by example and that my daughter comes to that place much sooner than I did. Yeah. But listen, you're figuring things out. Right. You're learning yourself.
Yeah, I think... Was she 13?
She's 13.
Yeah, that's a hard age.
It's
like,
really
that middle
hard
school
age
is like, was the toughest. And even high school, it doesn't really get a ton easier. But now in college, I'm starting to realize, like, this is what I like. I like feeling this way. I like wearing pink. Like, I know you're an orange, right?
I'm orange, yeah. Orange front door, too. Orange book cover.
Yeah. It's like my closet. Like, my friends know. They, like, come in.
You're Elle Woods.
I get a text. They're like, do you have a pink top? Wait, I don't know why I'm asking. I know you do. I'm coming to your closet. And it's that sort of thing. It's like, those people celebrate you for you. So just continue to be you.
Well, and also, like, who cares if they celebrate you? You have to celebrate you. That's what it's really most about.
Right.
Right? Like, if you don't like you,
Yeah.
you're screwed.
Yeah.
So, like
you.
do the work, man. Do the work to like
fall in
you.
love with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I'm so glad that we did this.
Yay. Thank you for coming all the way to New York City
Oh my
from,
goodness.
oh my gosh, Delaware, right? You came from...
Yeah, so I came from our beach. Well, we came from, my mom and I, we came from Delaware.
Oh my gosh.
The Cannonball
Because you're
team.
on summer break.
Yeah, I'm on summer
Okay.
break. So I came from Wilmington so I could go back tonight to the beach because, you know, my sister's there. Our friends are coming tomorrow. It's going to be the best thing.
Yay.
But yeah, I love New York City. This is always the best podcast location.
That's
so
awesome.
it's
Oh,
the
I'm glad.
greatest.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much. Everyone, have an amazing day. I hope you love this episode. Bye.